Chapter 1. Ksenia. Do you ever feel like shit doesn't matter? Like we're all rats running in a wheel to power the crap we'll never see or get the chance to use? Like dash. Thud. The teenager falls backwards off of his plastic chair and sends a scathing glare at the smirking man beside him. You got a problem, Rick? He grouses. Yeah, stop daydreaming and focus on the job. Your belly aching's starting to piss me off, Ori. The man, his uncle, says while checking his rifle for the nth time today. What am I even doing here? You know I'm gonk with a gun. Rick shrugs uncaringly. You'll be another head to aim for at the very least. Gives me some room to work. Ori lets out a sigh and gets up, repositioning his chair and looking around from the watchtower, if you could even call it that. They'd be given the task of keeping watch on the place. The underground shantytown they, or better yet, he, reluctantly calls home. Badly made shacks made of sheet metal, cloth, and scrap would fill his vision. The dim makeshift bulbs hanging from the top of the tunnel, they were all collectively under-provided, just enough light to see things. Almost everything was powered by a hastily done wiring job that siphoned electricity from the grid. This caused the lights and other electronics to occasionally flicker and shut off, however. Ksenia, a sanctuary of the weary and downtrodden of Night City. Ori's family had actually been the ones to find it. The Quadranos had been a dying nomad clan that had been forced to settle in the city. Due to their size and relative weakness compared to other standing gangs, they'd been unable to find proper land to buy or territory to claim. Thankfully, they'd ended up stumbling across abandoned shipping tunnels that snaked underneath the city in Watson, the entrance situated near the old DTR factory that was no longer in commission. It wasn't all that homely at first, but all the discarded junk, machinery, and undelivered shipping containers gave the clan a good point to start off. Unfortunately, their good nature allowed parasites to latch on, at least in Ori's view. It hadn't taken long for the homeless in the city to learn of their home, many flocking to reap the rewards and find a home in this unforgiving world. Some simply wanted protection, shelter, while others wanted to join something bigger than themselves without bending to the gangs and core. There had been many thieves too, along with those who had links with gangs. Watson was currently controlled by Maelstrom, who soon learned for Ksenia and decided to make use of it. They hadn't busted in and taken the whole place over though. Instead, they just elected to sneak in at night and kidnap sorry folks. Ori focuses on one of the only entrances into the tunnel. That would be the place they'd be attacked from, if it ever happened. He didn't know why anyone would bother. There wasn't anything here to take. Not unless you considered people a commodity. If you're so worried about it, maybe it's time for you to chrome up? You can't stay Ganic like that if you want to do anything worthwhile, Rick states, tapping on the dull metal plates around his eyes and forehead. Ori hadn't been around for it then, but apparently they'd saved his life on numerous occasions. This was supported by the deep scratches and divots visible. Your shit shooting could be fixed with some hand and arm upgrades, then replace your eyes and you'll be sniping assholes from miles away. Ori sniffs dismissively at him. Like I have the eddies to spend on stuff like that. I'm not throwing away parts of myself for dirty tech. You and the others might be fine with it, but I'd be on the fence even if you dropped corpo tier shit in front of me. What? You're afraid to go under the knife or something? You know Bats does good work. If eddies are the problem, then we can catch you. We're all family here. Rick offers. He shakes his head. I'm good. A buzzing pulls his attention and he pulls out a makeshift device from his pocket and opens it up, allowing a holographic image of his sister to appear before him. Her short, tomboyish black hair and fair face masked by egregious amounts of makeup, pouted at him through the call. Bro, you done yet? I'm almost done cooking and you said you'd be home already, she complains. Hey little cat, how are you doing today? Would that invitation extend to me swell? Rick almost coos over Ori's shoulder. She huffs at him. No, this is only for Dad and Ori. You go be a food, scav somewhere else. She makes a shooing gesture at him. Ori sends a smug look at him. Heh, the queen hath spoken. Sorry, Rick. You saying something to my bro, uncle? Cat exclaims from the call, silencing him. Nah, nothing at all. He sighs, go on Ori. I'll stay here and be hungry all by my lonesome. If you're looking for sympathy, you won't find any here. Ori states before nodding at Cat. I'm coming down now. He ends the call. Go on, as you said. You're a gonk shot anyway. Rick says, kicking his feet up and slouching in his chair. Ori starts to leave, but gets called back almost immediately. Forgot your gun, idiot. Rick says, and Ori awkwardly backtracks to scoop up his budget arms pistol and shuffles away. The trek through the shantytown doesn't take long. He greets the few Quadranos working in various places, mostly stalls for almost anything you can think of, electronics or scrap, guns, clothes, food, or even holovids and music. He ignores most of the homeless present. Most have learned not to beg in Ksenia, and so do it on the streets before returning here for shelter. His family try to keep the Kim junkies out, but it's a losing battle in the end. Even the alleys between shacks have some addicts hanging around shooting up. Eventually, he reaches his home, one of the only constructions in the tunnel that wasn't ready to fall apart at the seams. It was 2 stories and made of mostly wood, except for the windows that had been made out of recycled train parts. Kat was already there at the front door, ushering him inside, dragging him into the dining room where his dad, Emmanuel, was already waiting. He was stocky but not too short, black hair with a bushy, relatively well-maintained beard. His eyes audibly hummed as they visibly moved, readjusting and contracting themselves as they focused on Ori's face. Orville, so Katerina managed to get you off early then, huh? He idly remarks, grinning as he awaits their reaction. Don't call me that, both brother and sister say simultaneously. Their names had been a running joke in the family. Their mother had been a fan of old-world fiction, much to their misfortune. Emmanuel hadn't tried to stop her either, so they were stuck with them. They might have kept their full names if she was still alive, but now it just felt odd to cling to them. Ha 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 ha, you kids are still as prickly as a dying cactus. Their dad laughs at their apparent displeasure. Chapter 2, Kibbles. So, how is it? Kat asks as Ori picks at his food. It's good. He forces out, trying not to grimace with each bite. His sister had made burritos, which would have been great were it not for the ingredients. While she was a great cook, there was only so much one could do. Synth food was the bane of Ori's existence. None of it was real, and a good amount of it had been repurposed from the shit people in the past would use to feed their livestock. She tried to use kibble as the protein in the meal, a staple in Night City but dog food to anyone with any money at all. Even after bathing it in spices, he could pick out the aftertaste of it. He honestly doubled if the tortillas were even real, let alone whatever she'd used to create the salsa and sour cream. His sister had cooked an actual, fresh steak once. After that, everything tasted like dirt. Cat sighs, you don't have to lie. I can see it on your face. Ori wets his lips. Sorry. I don't want to be ungrateful, but you need to eat more. She leans over and pokes his almost gaunt cheek. You can't starve yourself just because you don't like the food. She mutters. We all get it, Ori. We ate better on the road. As mad as that sounds, his dad remarks. Yeah, we might be eating better now if we weren't looking after so many people too. Ori grumbles out. Emmanuel shakes his head. Maybe. Or maybe we'd be in the same situation with honest and innocent people starving to death right outside our doors. If only all of them were honest and innocent. Can you two drop it for today? I've had it hearing about this every time we're together. Kat interjects, forcing the father and son to go back to eating. So, anything interesting happen? Kat asks after a moment of silence. Emmanuel shrugs. Not much. Some scavs tried to sneak inside, but we had him running. I swear they're either getting dumber or just more desperate. Anything on Maelstrom? Ori questions. While everyone knew they were out and about, they'd not actually found them in the tunnels yet. Nothing. Occasionally see him walking around outside the DTR factory, but I doubt they're gonna try anything. Emmanuel lays down his fork and stands. Speaking of which, I think it's better you two get some shooting practice in. Kat quirks a brow. Why? I thought you said nothing was happening, she asks, wanting to stay back and continue writing the recipe book she'd been working on. Their dad's face twitches slightly but keeps his face neutral otherwise. He gives them a slight smile. Just want you two to be ready, should the worst happen. Ori shakes his head and shovels the rest of his meal into his mouth before standing. I'm good. I've got some shit to do anyway. No point wasting the bullets on me. You sure? Last time we tried you couldn't even hit the ceiling, and we live in a tunnel? Emmanuel remarks. You're headed to the junkyard again, aren't you? Kat questions. Again? You're turning into a real junk rat, aren't you? What are you even looking for? Emmanuel prompts. Ori shrugs his shoulders. I don't know. Anything really. The Corps have to dump something valuable occasionally. Yeah, if you can beat the other junk rats who live out there. You two have been saving up your eddies for a while now. Emmanuel looks to Kat. This for that idea of yours? She nods shyly. Is it weird? It feels like I'm trying to abandon the clan. Ori scoffs. By opening a restaurant outside of the slums? Don't be stupid. Besides, with how things are going, the clan won't last much longer. We need this. Don't say things like that. Emmanuel protests. Things aren't as bad as you're making them out to be. Dad, Kat can't even leave the house without a dozen layers of clothes and enough makeup for 10 people. She even had to cut her hair because of those creeps you let in. We're supposed to be in charge of this place, yet people act like we're easy prey. Have you even done anything about those assholes who slapped her ass last time? Yeah, we threw him out on the street for a couple days. Only half of him came back, said Maelstrom were responsible. Looks like Maelstrom's the only one dealing with the trash then. Whatever, I'm going, he says, waving over his shoulder as he picks up his bag and leaves, not letting his dad get another word in. That boy. Emmanuel sighs. Oh hey, Ori, a voice greets, immediately bringing a smile to his face. He turns around and spots her, the sole shining light of cleanliness and beauty in Ksenia, or at least that's what he calls her in his mind. Christy Klert, a braindance celebrity that occasionally visited to help out with the homeless, donating eddies and working in the soup kitchen. She had tan skin, pink hair and eyes, and shiny cyberware around her neck and temples. Did he have a crush on her? Of course, but what teenage boy his age wouldn't? A famous musician who dared to venture into the slums to perform charity? It was like she was too kind for this world. "Hey, Christy, what you doing?" he asks while shuffling his bag on his shoulder, the crude tools inside jabbing him slightly in the side. "Oh, you know, the usual. Had some time, so I thought I'd visit." She glances around. "I swear, this place gets bigger every time I come back." She refocuses on him. "You and your family are so amazing to keep it running. I've never seen a group so selfless before." Ori rubs the back of his head. Yeah, you know us, just trying to help out the little man. Someone's got to do it after all." She beams at him. "I wish there were more people like you around, Ori. The world would be a much better place," she says, rubbing him on the shoulder before beginning to leave. "I've got to go live in an hour, so I need to rush off. You be safe now." He waves her off. Sure. You too." He smiles dumbly, watching her depart. "Your fly's down," a voice states, causing Ori's head to shoot down and look at his pants, only to sigh in relief at that not being the case. "Fuck you, bats." The Quadrano Ripperdoc just cackles in response. "You stare any harder at that girl and your eyes'll fall out, kid." He pauses with a playful look on his face. "You know, I've just gotten some new optics in. Lets you see through clothes." He wiggles his brows. Ori blushes at that. That's a thing? Huh. Of course not. Not nowadays, at least. "I see I caught your interest, though, you little creep. Maybe you'd take some chrome if I offered some porn with it." Again, fuck you, bats. Ori grouses and quickly exits the tunnels, heading for the trains to reach the junkyard east of Santo Domingo.
Chapter 3. Municipal Landfill.
One train ride and trek through the streets of Rancho Coronado later, Ori finally reaches the junkyard. Really, Junk City would be a more apt description. This was the main area where most of the city dumped their trash, from the lowest homeless beggar tossing an empty pack of cigs to the corpo bigwigs who'd ordered their lackeys to dump bodies. There were literally mountains of trash, some even at risk of reaching the elevated highways. There were small shacks littered here and there, denoting that some idiots were actually trying to live here, despite the fact they might find themselves buried during the night. There were also many junk rats, as people called them, while most of the trash on the surface of these heaps had little to no value or had already been clept. If you wanted to find anything of worth, you needed to delve deeper, like a miner searching for ore. This was the main reason most junk rats didn't last long. Either they stumbled upon riches, or they were buried alive. There was no in-between here. Anyone desperate enough to wade through the city's garbage wasn't willing to put up with mere cracked shards or unsalvageable cyberware. Ori was the same. His sister had a dream and he intended to make it happen. He sweeps a hand through his black hair and lets out a sigh, stepping atop the first car wreckage that signaled the border of the massive landfill. Unlike others, he was strategic with this, picking areas that had either been freshly dumped or disturbed by vehicles, potentially dredging up hidden gems. He'd already found small successes with this: an undamaged Kong Tao smart scope, an intact heat-resistant netrunning suit, off of a corpse that had had its brain fried, of course, and a single Ripperdoc dissection hand that he'd gifted to bats. Still, the eddies he'd made weren't nearly enough, especially if he wanted to buy his sister a restaurant in a good area, not beset by crime, gangs, and corruption. Krosh. His head rapidly turns as one of the trash mountains collapses. He waits a couple minutes in case it's a full-on landslide, that or another cyberpsycho trying to blow the place up. Once it's clear, he makes his over and finds a grin splitting his face. At the bottom of the newly unearthed area was a shining chrome pistol that looked almost completely undamaged beside the small wear and tear. "Score!" he mentally shouts while sliding down to it, quickly swiping it and beginning to look it over. Full mag, sight undamaged, systems not even watermarked. Should be worth around 2,000 eddies at the least. He takes a seat on a half-shattered plastic chair overlooking the area and lights up cig, a ritual he'd begun whenever he found something. Was he proud of it?
No.
But when was anyone thinking when they get addicted to something? Least he was able to hide it from Dad and Kat by only doing it here. 2,000 down. Add the 5 we got stashed and... He takes a puff and sighs. 93,000 eddies to go. Fuck. He flicks the cig away and is about to leave when something catches his ears. The sound of grunting, heavy breathing, panicking. This better not be what I think it is. He murmurs to himself as he starts making his way over. There, he spots an old man wearing a dirty white lab coat hurriedly digging through the trash with his bare hands, his cyberware being the only thing preventing him from completely bloodying his fingers. Come on, come on, come on. It has to be here. Why did I think this was a good idea? Putting it here? Near the landfill? Come on, he erratically exclaims to himself, attempting to be quiet during his work so as to not attract attention, which had obviously failed. He continues digging, down and down until somehow he reaches the ground below the trash, He scrapes the soft dirt to the side, revealing a sleek metal box with an Arasaka symbol scratched into it. It's here. It's here. Oh, thank God it's here. He rambles to himself, pressing a button on the box which reveals both a keypad and some kind of sensor, optical if Ori had to guess judging by its shape. This looked elaborate and valuable. Most of all, it looked like his and his family's key to get out of the slums. He grips the smart gun tightly and starts slowly sneaking over, not wanting to disturb the man before he unlocked the safe. Beep beep. He enters the incorrect code the first time and swears under his breath, but he gets it the second, then tries to unlock the eye scanner. Click. The door swings open, revealing a smaller metal box, airtight and with a dozen locks and safety precautions. Ori could even spy a small explosive charge on the side that'd destroy the contents of the box. Why so many precautions were required he didn't know, only that whatever it was very valuable. The box itself was probably worth 5 times the smart gun in his hand. He'd steal the safe too if he could actually carry it, but the thing must have weighed a ton. The old man tentatively extracts the box and begins the process of unlocking it. He did many things that went over Ori's head, his cybernetic fingers manually disarming the charge while the man himself entered the system via the port in his neck. After waiting what felt like an eternity, the box finally hisses open, the stale air within rapidly escaping. Ori sneaks closer, standing on a wrecked fridge, just tall enough to look over the old man's shoulder. Inside the box was a knife? What kind of knife needed this much fucking security? It didn't look all that impressive either. A sleek metal black handle and a blade that was at least 12 inches long, but with a flat tip. The thing didn't have any edges either, as if it was a practice knife or something. It's undamaged. Oh, thank God. No, I should destroy it. No, I need it. What should I do? What should I do? Why did I even come back here? Maybe dash. Click. The man wheels around and comes face to face with Ori, who was already pointing the smart gun at his head. Why don't you put that down, old-timer? You'll live another couple of years that way. He offers, cocking the pistol for emphasis. Chapter 4. Trashed. Why don't you put that down, old-timer? You'll live another couple of years that way. The old man slowly raises his hands above his head, wide, shocked eyes blinking rapidly. Stop this. You don't know what you're doing. To this dash, he shakes the strange knife slightly. Isn't worth anything. Nothing. Ori shakes his head. I'll be the judge of that. Now hand it over. The old man's face twitches as he stays planted where he's here, not moving. Are you listening? I'll blow a fucking hole in your head if you don't hand that arc. Ori exclaims as he instantly feels the intrusion through his interface, the only fucking cyberware he actually had. His vision crackles with static as the link to his brain is fucked with. He bites his cheek hard and refocuses on reality instead of the random letters and symbols spotting his vision, allowing him to notice the old man who was now charging at him. Fucker was a net runner. One of those geek assholes who could enter the net and manipulate tech around them. Must have hacked his shit. Ori instantly pulls the trigger to try and shoot the guy dead, but a holographic image appears above the gun. Smart link required to operate. What the fuck? He shouts, throwing the useless gun at the old man who just slaps it out of the air and continues, sending a punch right into Ori's chest. Crack, crash. Ribs crack under the cybernetically enhanced punch, and Ori slams into the same fridge from earlier, the wind knocked out of him. He looks up and spots the old man still coming, looking ready to stomp his skull into mulch. I'm not going down so easily, you old bastard, he shouts, pulling his crappy budget arms pistol from where he'd been hiding it. Daga. He fires off a spray knowing that something was bound to hit at this range. But the old man weathers it all, blocking some with his arms while some others deflect off of the guy's forehead. This guy was a total chrome junkie. Was his entire body metal or something? The old man tries to rip the gun out of Ori's grip, but he grabs hold of it with both hands. While he was far weaker, he was wrestling 2 hands against one, since the old man refused to relinquish his hold on that strange knife. I am going to strip your body seal and you be a starred. Ori growls as he strains against the man for ownership of the gun. Unfortunately, even with both arms, he was losing the struggle. Thus, Ori tried unconventional tactics. He lunges forwards and tries to tear out the man's throat with his teeth, only to find even the guy's neck had been replaced with some strong silica-based material. It was like biting into a tire. Regardless, he presses, biting harder and shaking his head like a rabid dog, eventually managing to draw blood. Gee, get off, you animal! The old man screeches, seemingly unacquainted with pain. Go Gerst! Ori growls, still biting down. The old man tries to shift his grip on his gun but accidentally pulls the trigger, causing the thing to spray a burst of bullets into the air, surprising him enough to cause him to tumble backwards. Harg! Ori shouts, wrenching the gun out of the man's grip, only to pause when the man stills. He looks down and feels his breath hitch. The strange knife had been stabbed up to the handle in his chest, directly in his heart. Why you? His eyes roll up and he falls backwards, blood pooling beneath him from the lethal wound. He tries to raise the gun one last time to make things mutual, but doesn't have the strength to raise his arm. And no. The old man babbles as he forcefully pulls the knife out of his chest, causing blood to spatter against his face. This can be fixed. He looks over the knife, wiping the blood off with his coat. You undamaged. Thank God. Shaking his head, he quickly flees the scene, unwilling to stay any longer after the racket he and the thief had just made. This is the last thing Ori sees before his vision blackens, sending him into unconsciousness. Ha! Ori gasps as his body jolts awake, the sound of moving scrap forcing him awake. He blinks blearily at the sky for a couple seconds, quickly realizing that it had turned morning, memories of earlier shootback, causing him to gasp once more as he sits up, patting his chest over. His ratty shirt was covered in dried blood, the hole of the knife still there. He strips off and looks at his chest, pausing again at the strange sight. It had healed over and scarred, but the wound didn't look anything like that knife. It was strange, gross even, looking like someone had tried to shove a handheld blender through him, like Jiraiya's chest scar. The most confusing thing was how the hell he'd survived it. He'd been stabbed in the heart. He knew that well. Had he died?
No.
There was no way. He wasn't some protagonist out of a Borgie rom-com, a kiss, and he will awaken. In real life, people didn't get second chances, so something was definitely up. He needed to see a doc ASAP. He grimaces slightly, his ribs still apparently broken. Don't know if I should be upset or glad that I'm still alive. He groans to himself. He shakes his head and lets out a sigh and starts lighting a cig. The smart gun was on the floor not far from him, so at least he hadn't lost everything. Not managing to clep that knife, though. He'd probably have nightmares about it for years to come. He could ignore his brush with death. Shit like that is to be expected in Night City, but the loss of Eddie's? That'd sting. He still wasn't even sure if everything he saw was real. He got hacked, so there was a high chance that the fight went differently than he thought. Hell, the guy may have just made him shoot himself. He tries to take a puff of his cig, but accidentally drops it on the ground. Piece of shit, he grumbles, lightening up a second. When he brings it to his mouth, his hand literally flings it across the clearing, leaving Ori blinking dumbly at it. What the fuck is going on? He grits his teeth and pulls out the entire pack. Fucker must have left a virus. You hear me, old man? Think this is funny? Virus or not, I'm smoking this. He angrily shouts but catches his arm as it tries to throw the entire pack away. Not this time, he starts, only to then lose control of both arms. They twist the pack of cigs before slamming it down on the ground, completely ruining them. Motherfucker, don't think I won't beat the shit out of you, he angrily shouts at his arms. Chapter 5. Consequences? Ori begins hobbling home from the junkyard, his injured form presenting a sorry sight that most people in Night City simply ignored. Admittedly, he was freaking a bit over the strange phenomenon that had hit him. His arms forcing him to stop smoking? Sounded like one of those old-world anti-smoking ads. He gets on the first cart train back to Watson and reaches for his holophone, only to curse under his breath at its mangled form. That old bastard's punch must have completely wrecked it. It looked more like a metal pizza than anything now. Rubbing his eyes, he tosses the broken thing on the floor while grimacing from the movement due to his ribs. Oi, the seat. A taller, well-built man with visible cyberware growls at him. Look man, if you can't see already, I'm really fucked up. Just gimme a break, alright? Ori states, trying to reason with him. Do I look like I give a shit? You move, or you get zeroed once you step off. Yeah, alright. Fine. He grouses, forcing himself to his feet and getting some distance. He didn't need this kind of shit right now. Chrome jocks like that scum like to throw their weight around. Finally, he reaches his stop and steps out, only to slowly quicken his pace as the sound of gunshots gets louder the closer he gets to home. Gunfire wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but the amount and where it was coming from. A big red flag. By the time he reaches the outskirts of the old DTR factory, his adrenaline was running high. Outside the entrance leading into Ksinia, a group of Maelstrom goons were shooting at some animal gangers who'd barricaded themselves inside with scrap metal, along with parts that had undoubtedly come from the shacks that composed most of the shanty town. What is going on? He mutters to himself, staring at the corpses the Maelstrom members were stepping over. He recognized them, members of the Quadrano clan. Alan, Patrice, Salma, Rachel, all dead, lying on the ground filled with lead. In a rage, he unconsciously steps forward despite his complete lack of functional weapons, only to be grabbed by someone from behind. Ori swings a fist at them and it connects, but the shock of pain from his ribs forces him to stop from continuing his assault. Oi, that you? Bats asks from the floor while rubbing his cheek. Bats? What the hell is happening? Why are gangers fighting in our place? The Ripperdoc shakes his head. I have no fucking clue. They just turned up here last night and have been fighting ever since. He focuses on Ori. Where the fuck have you been anyway? You've been missing for 3 days. 3 days? He exclaims in shock. Iman sent half the clan looking for you. But nothing. Then these guys turned up and started shooting everyone up. This hit Ori harder than anything else as he quickly comes to one conclusion. This was his fault. That old man must have been a corpo and wasn't satisfied with just flatlining him. He wanted more, so he went for his family, sent every gang in the book after them. His eyes regain focus and he grabs Bat's shoulders. The others, where are they? Cat, my dad. Did they make it out? I don't know, kid. I've been waiting out here for them but haven't seen anyone. Not Rick, not your fam, and not any other Quadrano. God fucking damn it. Ori exclaims and kicks a nearby trash can, sending it flying but almost falling to the ground himself, his ribs feeling like they'd tear their way out of his chest. He shakes his head and ignores the pain. I'm going in there. No scum-sucking gangers are going to touch them. Wait, that's suicide. They've got the whole entrance plugged, and I swore I saw the tiger claws running a couple minutes ago. Even them? Is the whole goddamn town in there? Ori angrily shouts before turning Bats. You got a gun? He pulls out the smart pistol. This shit doesn't work unless you got tech for it. Bats nods and shoves a revolver into his hands while snatching the smart gun. We'll swap. I can use this. How are we gonna get in though? There's a whole army there. The sewers, there's a back entrance through some tunnels, should come out near my house. Let's go. The duo quickly begin making their way around and soon spot the manhole, both hurriedly clambering down it since their family depended on it. Look, Ori, what we'll see down there, Dash. What? Ori bites back a snarl. That they're dead? Shut your mouth and keep walking. Bats shakes his head. Here, top you up until we can get you some proper medical, he says, handing him a stim air hypo. Ori uses it without a second thought, jabbing it into his thigh and instantly feeling relief. The pain was suppressed and his adrenaline was pumping like nobody's business. CRRR crash. Ori kicks open a sewer grate and looks around, spotting the flashes of light indicating gunfire. In the distance he could see his house, burning and filling the tunnel with deadly black smoke.
No.
Ori Dash, wait. Bats shouts as he rushes away towards the back door of his burning house, crashing through it with wide eyes. Cat, are you here? Dad? Anyone in here? At the lack of response, he begins rapidly searching the place, ignoring the burns forming on his exposed skin. The kitchen was empty, and so was the dining room and bathroom. By the time he reached the second floor, the entire floor below him was in a blaze. Even then he couldn't find anything. His, Cat's, and Dad's rooms were empty, though there were signs of a struggle in his sister's room, only angering him further. He hurriedly checks the stash where they'd been hiding their cred chips and almost opens fire on it when it turns up empty. They'd been robbed, his sister kidnapped, and his father who the fuck knows. Thwom. Fire explodes out of the floor and scorches his back, ruining what was left of his bloodied shirt and forcing him to throw himself out of the window, landing haphazardly next to Bats. Are you trying to get yourself killed? The hell it wrong with you? They have my fucking sister, Bats. They took her. He coughs and splutters out. Took all our shit too, our cash? No, she must have got out and took the eddies with her. Think about this rationally. Ori gives a tired shake of his head and slowly gets up with Bat's help. Then she must still be around here. You didn't see her, right? So she's here. She must be. You aren't in any state to go on, kid. You look like a burn victim. I am a burn victim, you dumbass. I'm staying. You can run if you want. I ain't leaving without Cat. I'm gonna regret this, Bats mutters after a moment of thought, beginning to support Ori on his shoulder.